Cup. And sadly, on August 13th, 2010, Lance Cade passed away, which, like I said, it was terrible. As I mentioned earlier, I thought this guy was going to be primed to the top. We said earlier he was jacked. He was like a Greek god, and fortunately, he passed away. He was 29 years old. Like I said, with the Benoit thing, which was devastating, Eddie Guerrero, but this one must have really hit home when it happened. What was it like when you found out?
Oh, it was fucking, it was horrible, man. It was, I had, we had just, what a lot of people don't know is Harley's wife, BJ, had
Yeah.
passed away about 4 or 5 months before that. And
Oh,
this
right,
was a
didn't know
woman
that.
that I considered like my mom. Like there
Yeah,
was Harley, who's like my dad, who
yeah,
I spent, what a lot of people don't know is when I went to WWE, I still lived in the same town. So any of my off days, I was at my home or I was at the school with Harley. So for 15 years, him and I were together, and his wife was the same way. I loved her dearly. So about 4 months before this, BJ's passed away. And I have a bar that she actually talked me into getting, and she was going to help me run. But then the good Lord, came into play
yeah.
and took her home. So I'm laying in bed, I'm exhausted, and I wake up, and my bar manager and my wife are at the end of my bed. And I'm
Right.
like, what happened to Harley? Because my bar manager was actually a wrestler that I had trained. And
All right.
so I knew his background, and he was, taking care of business for me. And they said, no, it wasn't Harley. Um, Lance, something happened to Lance. So what happened? They said he passed away, and I was still half asleep, and I was
Yeah,
like, that's a fucked up joke. Like,
yeah,
you want me out of bed, don't say stupid stuff like that. And I looked at my cell phone to see what time it was, and there was a text from HBK, and he said, call me right now, kid. And I call him, and I said, man, I was like, what is all this? What is all this shit I hear about Lance passing away? And I'm starting to get choked up because I remember it so vividly. Uh,
yeah,
Sean goes, I'm sorry, kid, he's gone. And I dropped to my knees. I broke down like a schoolgirl, just
yeah.
bawling my eyes out because this is my best friend.
He was like a
I have two
brother
best
to you,
friends.
really.
Yeah, I have two best friends in this world, and Lance was one of them.
Yeah,
And my kids called him uncle. He wasn't just a business partner. He wasn't just a friend that I made money with or I was on the road with and I wrestled with. He was a brother.
yeah,
I had been to his home and had family dinners with his wife and kids. I'd been to his family functions with his grandmothers and sisters. He had been down to our home for Harley's yearly Christmas parties. We got to do shows while we were champs for Harley under the WWE umbrella. Like WWE, Harley made the call, like, can I have Trevor and Lance for this
yeah,
weekend? And we got to go wrestle for Harley and Eldon, and it was a great, and my kids called him Uncle Lance. You know what I mean? And that's not something I give in my home very lightly. You know what I
mm,
mean? So when when I finally realized what had happened, uh, tried to collect myself, and I called his wife, and I called his sister and his dad, and we all collectively had a bawled our eyes out. I'd found out the funeral arrangements, and me, my wife, and my two children at the time drove 18 hours straight to San Antonio. Um, what a lot of people don't know is Sean HBK paid for my hotel the whole time I was down there. His wife owned an indoor amusement park with like all
yeah.
these big bounce house activity things. Um, and Sean invited us there so my kids could go play. You know, we went to the funeral. I got I spoke at his funeral, which was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
Yeah,
I loved I loved that, man. he would step in front. I talk about him like a gay lover, uh, but and that wasn't the case at all. It's just
Yeah.
you don't get too many close friends that you can truly trust in the
Yeah.
wrestling business, in life, period, in life,
Yeah.
but let alone the wrestling business. And I could call Lance and go, "Hey man, I just killed somebody and I'm scared," and he'd be like, "Where we need to hide the body." You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he was, he was a brother, and to be
Yeah.
taken so suddenly like that at such a young age, um, it was just it totally caught me out of left field. You know what I mean? It wasn't anything I expected, and he is he's sorely missed still
Yeah.
to this day. Like my kid, my middle child, my oldest boy, Trevor Paul, is 14. He's the one, and my daughter remember him, but my 14-year-old boy really remembers him because his daddy was tag champ when he was younger, and he can remember it. And Uncle Lance was tag champ, and he's got pictures of him and Lance and I with the belts, as a kid, and just family memories that you
Yeah.
don't create with just some random person or random friend. You know what I mean? He was a
Yeah.
member of my family. And to
Yeah.
lose him, this world lost number one, a fucking badass wrestler. You're talking about
Oh
a
yeah.
guy who's 290 pounds, could move like a cruiserweight, and tell stories in there that a lot of people can't do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the wrestling business lost a great wrestler, but humanity lost a really good dude.
Yeah, it was very sad. I remember when like I said, I heard about it and I was like, wow, I just can't believe this because for the one thing, he was so young, 29 years. I'm 31, so I'm 2 years older than what Lance was when he passed away, and so sad. But it's one of them. But yeah, it was just so sad when I heard about it, so I just couldn't believe it. So I can imagine for you, it was so hard to deal with. But